God knows what's best for you, even when you don't understand it in the moment. There are times in life when we become attached to people who were never meant to stay. We hold on, hoping they will change, believing that we can fix them, thinking that if we just love them more, they will finally be who we need them to be. But God sees what we cannot see. He knows the hidden struggles, the intentions of the heart, and the ways in which certain relationships are holding us back from the future He has prepared. You see, when God begins to remove the wrong people from your life, it's not to punish you, it's to protect you, it's to guide you towards something greater, something healthier, something that aligns with His divine purpose. But too often we resist, we fight to keep people in our lives who are only meant to be there for a season. We beg God to let them stay, not realizing that holding on to them may be the very thing preventing us from stepping into the blessings He has in store. Think about a child who clings to a broken toy. The parent knows it's no longer good for them, it has sharp edges, it could hurt them, but the child doesn't want to let go because it's familiar. That's how we are with people sometimes. We get so attached to what's comfortable, what we've always known, that we struggle to release it even when God is trying to replace it with something far better. The truth is, God's removal is His redirection. When He takes someone out of your life, it's because they are no longer part of the journey He has set before you. Maybe they were draining your energy, distracting you from His voice, or influencing you in ways that didn't align with His will. Maybe they were keeping you from recognizing your worth, making you feel small when God created you to walk in boldness. Or maybe their time in your life was simply up, because not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. Some of you have been questioning why certain friendships ended, why that relationship didn't work out, why you've drifted from people you once thought would always be there, and you're looking at it through the lens of loss instead of through the lens of God's divine protection. If God closed a door, it's because He saw something behind it that you couldn't. If He pulled someone away, it's because He knew they could not go where He is leading you. Now, I know that doesn't always make it easy. Letting go hurts. Change is uncomfortable. We get used to people even when they aren't good for us. But when you truly believe that God is for you, that His plans are for your good and not for your harm, then you can begin to trust that every person He removes is a necessary step toward the life He has designed for you. There may be moments when you feel lonely. You may wonder why God hasn't yet brought the right people into your life. But let me tell you this. God doesn't just take away, He restores. He doesn't just remove, He replaces. And what He has for you is far greater than anything you're leaving behind. The friendships, the relationships, the connections that He ordains will be life-giving, uplifting, and rooted in His truth. If you are in a season where God is removing people, don't fight it. Don't chase after what He is trying to free you from. Instead, lift your hands in surrender and say, Lord, I trust You. I trust that You see what I cannot. I trust that You have my best interest at heart. And I trust that whatever You take away, You will replace with something even greater. Let go and watch what God does next. Sometimes we don't understand why certain people leave our lives. We question it. We wrestle with it. We wonder if we did something wrong. But I want you to know today that separation is often part of God's plan. When He begins to shift things in your life, when He starts to pull people away, it's not because He wants to hurt you. It's because He's making room for something greater. We serve a God who moves with purpose. Nothing happens by accident. Every closed door, every ended relationship, every person who walks away is part of a bigger picture that He is painting in your life. But the problem is we don't always see that picture right away. All we see is what's missing, what's changed, what feels different. And in our human nature, we resist that change. We try to hold on, even when God is telling us to let go. There are times when God will separate you from people because He knows that where He is taking you, they cannot go. They may have been right for a past season, but they are not right for the next one. And if you keep trying to drag them along, you'll find yourself weighed down, unable to step into the fullness of what God has planned for you. Think about Abraham when God told him to leave his homeland and go to a place he would show him. God had a great promise for Abraham, but that promise required separation. He had to leave behind what was familiar, what was comfortable, in order to walk into the destiny that God had set before him. And many of us are in that same position. We want the blessing, but we don't want the separation that comes with it. We want the promise, but we don't want to release what is holding us back. Maybe there's someone in your life right now that God has been trying to remove, but you keep holding on. You keep making excuses, thinking you can change them, thinking that if you just try a little harder, things will get better. But let me tell you, when God is calling you higher, you cannot stay connected to people who are keeping you low. You cannot move forward while still clinging to what He is asking you to leave behind. Now, I know that letting go isn't easy. I know that separation hurts, but would you rather endure temporary pain or stay stuck in a place that God never intended for you? Would you rather struggle through the discomfort of change or miss out on the incredible things that God has prepared for you? Some of you are in a season right now where God is shifting things. People you never expected to walk away have left. Friendships that once felt strong have faded. Doors you thought would stay open forever have suddenly shut. And you're wondering why. But what if I told you that it's not a mistake? What if I told you that it's not rejection, it's redirection? What if I told you that God is clearing the path because He has something so much greater ahead? I don't want you to waste your energy mourning what God has already removed. I don't want you to stay stuck in frustration trying to figure out why things changed. Instead, I want you to lift your eyes and realize that God is doing something new. He is setting you up for something far beyond what you could imagine, but you'll never receive it if you keep looking back. Jesus Himself experienced separation. There were people who walked with Him for a time, but when it was time for Him to fulfill His ultimate purpose, many of them left. But He didn't chase after them. He didn't beg them to stay. He knew that the Father's plan was greater than any human relationship, and that's the posture we have to take. Trust that if God is removing someone, He is making room for something better. Trust that if He is separating you from certain people, it's because He knows their presence is no longer beneficial to your journey. Don't resist what He's doing. Don't fight to hold on to what He is pulling away. Instead, open your heart, surrender your will, and say, Lord, I trust You. Because when you truly trust Him, you will realize that every loss is actually a gain, every separation is actually an elevation, and everything He removes is just making space for what He is about to do next. There are some relationships in your life that are not helping you grow. There are people around you who are draining your energy, pulling you away from God's plan, and keeping you from becoming who He created you to be, and you may not even realize it yet. Sometimes the wrong people don't look wrong right away. Sometimes they come into your life disguised as friends, as mentors, even as family members, who seem to have your best interests at heart, but over time you begin to see the signs. Your joy fades, your peace is disturbed, your purpose becomes blurry, you find yourself caught in cycles of negativity, distraction, and even sin. And yet, because of history, because of attachment, because of fear, you keep them in your life, thinking that maybe things will change. But let me tell you something, when God is calling you higher, He will not allow the wrong people to stay in your life forever. He will begin to stir something in your spirit, a restlessness, a discomfort, because He knows that as long as you are connected to them, you cannot step fully into what He has planned for you. And if you don't remove them yourself, He will do it for you. Not to hurt you, but to protect you. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. God does not want anything standing in the way of your destiny. He does not want anything blocking the blessings He has for you. And sometimes that means removing people who are keeping you from experiencing the fullness of His plan. Some of you have been wondering why you feel stuck, why your prayers seem unanswered, why you don't feel the presence of God the way you used to. And the truth is, you might be connected to someone who is blocking You see, the wrong people can affect you more than you think. They can influence your decisions, shift your mindset, and lead you down a path you were never meant to walk. Have you ever noticed how when you spend time with certain people, you start thinking like them, talking like them, even picking up their habits? That's because the people you surround yourself with shape you. The Bible says bad company corrupts good character. It doesn't say it might corrupt, it says it will. Some of you are holding on to toxic relationships thinking that loyalty is more important than your purpose. You're afraid to let go because you don't want to be alone. But let me tell you, being in the wrong company is far worse than being alone. You don't need to hold on to people who are constantly pulling you into drama, negativity, and sin. You don't need to keep relationships that require you to compromise who you are just to keep them happy. If someone is distracting you from God, if someone is causing you to lower your standards, if someone is feeding your insecurities instead of building you up, they are not meant to stay. Now, I know it's hard. I know that some of these relationships feel comfortable, that some of these people have been in your life for years. But comfort does not always mean good. Just because something is familiar does not mean it is beneficial. And just because you love someone does not mean they are meant to walk with you into your future. If you are in a season where God is removing people from your life, don't fight it. Don't try to force relationships that He is trying to sever. Trust that He knows what He's doing, because the truth is you cannot receive what God has for you while still holding on to what He is trying to remove. You cannot step into the next chapter of your life while still carrying baggage from the last one. And here's the good news: when God removes the wrong people, He makes room for the right ones. He is not just taking away, He is preparing to replace. He is preparing to bring people into your life who will uplift you, who will encourage you, who will challenge you to grow in your faith, people who will push you closer to your purpose, not pull you away from it. So if God is showing you that someone doesn't belong in your life anymore, trust Him enough to let them go. Trust Him enough to walk away from relationships that are draining you instead of fueling you. Trust Him enough to believe that what He has in store is far greater than what you're leaving behind, because when you finally let go of the wrong people, you will see how quickly He fills your life with the right ones. Life is made up of seasons. Just as the weather changes, so do the people in our lives. Some are meant to stay for a lifetime, while others are only there for a season. The problem is we often struggle to accept when a season has ended. We hold on to people longer than we should, trying to force relationships that were only meant to be temporary. But when God is moving you forward, He will not allow you to stay attached to those who are no longer part of His plan for your future. There are friendships that started strong, relationships that felt unshakable, connections that seemed like they would last forever. But over time, things began to shift. Conversations felt different. Priorities changed. And the connection that once felt natural started to fade. And instead of recognizing that God was closing a chapter, you kept trying to reopen it. Instead of letting go, you kept holding on. But what if I told you that some people were never meant to stay? What if I told you that their purpose in your life has already been fulfilled? God brings people into your life for a reason, but He also removes them when their time is up. Some are there to teach you something, to help you grow, to encourage you for a season. But when their purpose is complete, God shifts them out of the way to make room for the next thing He has for you. And if you try to hold on to them past their season, you will find yourself stuck in old habits, stuck in old mindsets, stuck in a place that no longer serves who you are becoming. Think about the trees in the fall. The leaves that once bloomed so beautifully begin to wither and fall away. The tree does not fight to keep them. It does not try to glue them back on. It simply lets them go, knowing that in the right time, new leaves will grow in their place. And that's how we need to be when God is transitioning us. We need to trust that when something falls away, it is making space for something new. Some of you are struggling with the loss of relationships that you thought would last forever. You've been asking God why people walked away, why certain friendships faded, why connections that once felt strong suddenly broke apart. But maybe the answer is simple: because their season in your life was over. And rather than seeing it as a loss, What if you started seeing it as preparation? What if you started believing that God is making space for the right people, the ones who will walk with you in this next season? Holding on to people who are meant to leave can keep you from experiencing the fullness of what God has for you. You cannot receive new blessings while clinging to past attachments. You cannot step into your purpose while being weighed down by relationships that are no longer aligned with your journey. When God begins to remove people, it is not rejection, it is redirection. It is His way of clearing the path so that you can move forward. And I know letting go is not easy. It hurts when people you love walk away. It's painful when friendships dissolve. But when you trust God's plan, you understand that every separation is a step towards something greater. You begin to realize that God is not just taking something away, He is making room for something better. Think about Jesus and His disciples. For a season, they walked together, they shared life, they witnessed miracles. But when Jesus was preparing to fulfill His ultimate purpose, even those closest to Him had to step aside. Some betrayed Him, some denied Him, some simply could not go where He was going. And yet He did not cling to them, He did not beg them to stay, because He knew that His destiny was in the Father's hands, not in the hands of people. That is the same trust you need to have that God is allowing people to enter into your life. Trust that He is doing it for your good. If He is removing certain relationships, trust that He is preparing you for something far greater. Do not fight to hold on to what God is trying to release. Do not waste time mourning seasons that have already passed. Instead, look ahead with expectation, knowing that what God has planned is always better than anything you leave behind. Because when you finally let go of what is no longer meant for you, you will realize that God has been setting you up for something far beyond what you could ever imagine. When God begins to remove the wrong people from your life, He is not just taking something away, He is making room for something greater. Too often we focus on what we lost rather than on what God is about to do. We spend so much time grieving relationships that ended, friendships that faded, and connections that didn't last, that we fail to see the new things God is bringing into our lives. But let me tell you, when God closes one door, He always opens another. When He removes people, He is setting the stage for something better. You see, God knows who belongs in your life and who doesn't. He sees what we cannot see. He knows the hidden intentions, the private struggles, the unseen burdens that others carry. And sometimes He removes people because He knows their presence will hold you back. He knows that if they stay, they will limit your growth, distract you from your calling, and pull you away from the purpose He has for you. But instead of trusting His plan, we often fight against it. We try to hold on to people He is pulling away. We chase after relationships He has already ended. But I want you to understand something. God never removes something from your life without the intention of replacing it with something better. He is not a God of emptiness. He is a God of fulfillment. If He is taking someone out of your life, it is because He is making space for someone who will encourage you, strengthen you, and help you grow in faith. If He is shifting you away from certain people, it is because He is leading you to the right ones, the ones who will walk with you in purpose, not pull you away from it. Think about when you clean out a cluttered room. At first, it looks like a mess. Things are scattered. Familiar objects are being thrown away, and for a moment it feels overwhelming. But once the unnecessary things are gone, suddenly there is space. There is room for something new. That is exactly what God is doing when He removes the wrong people from your life. It may feel messy at first. It may feel like you're losing more than you're gaining, but trust that He is making space for something far greater. Some of you are in a season right now where it feels like God is stripping things away. Relationships have ended. Friendships have changed. And you feel like you're losing more than you're gaining. But I want to encourage you, do not see this as a loss. See it as preparation. God is not punishing you. He is positioning you. He is setting you up for divine connections, for friendships that will strengthen your spirit, for relationships that will help you grow. But you will never receive what He has for you if you keep clinging to what He has removed. There are some friendships you lost because they were never meant to last. There are some people who left because God knew they could not go where He was taking you. And if you could see what He sees, you would thank Him for closing those doors. You would praise Him for removing what was never meant to stay. Because sometimes the very thing you're crying over is the thing God is using to free you. The very relationship you're trying to hold on to is the one that was keeping you stuck. And if you could see what was ahead, you wouldn't want to go back. That is why you must trust Him. Trust that His plans are always for your good. Trust that He knows what is best for you, even when it doesn't make sense in the moment. You may not understand why certain people had to leave. You may not see the full picture yet. But if you keep walking in faith, if you keep your heart open to what God is doing, you will look back and realize that every loss was actually a gain. Every ending was a new beginning. And every person He removed was making space for someone better. So stop chasing after what God has already taken away. Stop looking back at relationships that are no longer aligned with your purpose. Instead, stand firm in faith, knowing that He is leading you to something greater. Because when you finally let go of the wrong people, you will see how quickly He fills your life with the right ones. When God removes the wrong people from your life, it is not just about separation, it is about transformation. He is not only taking things away, He is making you into the person He created you to be. There are times in life when you will feel the weight of loss, when people will walk away, when relationships will change, and you may wonder why. But understand this: every time God removes something, He is shaping you for something greater. He is refining you, strengthening you, and preparing you for what's ahead. Sometimes we don't realize how much people influence us. The wrong people can keep you in a mindset that is beneath where God wants you to be. They can hold you back from stepping into your purpose, not because they intend to, but because their presence in your life is not aligned with God's plan. And if you are not careful, you will spend years walking in circles, stuck in the same patterns, never fully stepping into what God has called you to do. But when God steps in, He starts removing everything that does not belong. He starts stripping away relationships that weaken you, mindsets that limit you, and distractions that pull you away from your destiny. It might feel uncomfortable, and at times it may even feel lonely, but that loneliness is not a punishment. It is the season of preparation. It is God's way of drawing you closer to Him, teaching you to depend on Him, and showing you that He alone is enough. There are moments in life when God will pull you aside, not to abandon you, but to refine you. He will take you through seasons where He removes familiar comforts so that you can rely on Him completely. You may not understand it while it's happening, but trust that He is doing something in you. He is shifting your perspective, renewing your mind, and setting you apart for something greater. Look at the life of Joseph. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. He lost everything: his family, his freedom, his security. But through every loss, God was positioning him. He was not being abandoned. He was being prepared. And in the right time, God elevated him to a position of power and influence, not in spite of what he had lost, but because of it. You see, when God removes people from your life, it is because He is getting ready to take you to a place where they cannot go. Some people are part of your past, but cannot be part of your future. Some relationships were meant to teach you something, but were never meant to last. And if you hold on to them, you will miss what God is trying to do in your life. Trust the process. Trust that God knows what He is doing. Trust that when He takes something away, it is for your good. You may not see it right away, but if you stay faithful, if you keep walking in obedience, you will look back and realize that everything God removed was making space for something better. And when that happens, when you finally see the full picture, you will not mourn what you lost. You will rejoice over what God has done. You will see that every person who walked away, every door that closed, every relationship that ended was part of a greater plan. Because God does not take away to leave you empty. He removes to rebuild. He prunes to produce more fruit. He refines to reveal His glory in you. So if you are in a season where God is removing people from your life, do not be discouraged. Do not fight to hold on to what He is trying to release. Instead, lift your eyes to Him, knowing that He is working all things for your good. Because when you finally surrender to His will, when you trust Him enough to let go, you will find that what He has prepared for you is far greater than anything you left behind.